Welcome back to Abel's Treasures. Today we have the opportunity to talk to Tony Miller. His business is called Downside Up. He's also a reseller. I will make sure I put all of his links down below. I really enjoyed this conversation as we talked about networking, coaching, and how being vulnerable can help you with the networking process. Remember, wait until the end where I pull away 3 things that I pulled from this conversation. Now, before we get started, remember to hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to share this with your friends. Otherwise, I'll see you on the other side. Let's go. Tony, welcome to Abel's Treasures. I thank you for coming onto my channel. Now, before we get started and handing it over to you, I really want to tell you that you are a leader. Now, I met you, Tony, in the leadership group, and we are blessed enough to know the same person, John. So shout out to him for bringing us together. In that leadership group, I saw your leadership, and I was very proud to be able to see how you stood up for people. And then us continuing this connection is really a blessing for me. So again, thank you for coming onto my channel. But on that note, will you do me a favor and tell the people a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. My name's Tony. My company is Downside Up. I am a reseller. So I basically look for people's the stuff that people don't want. And I buy those things, and then I get them to people who do want them and who pay a premium for those items. So I run basically a reselling company similar to what Abel does and a lot of the people that have been on the channel. So I'm a small business owner. I'm the only person that does this in my little dungeon basement here. I've got a background in education. I have life coach training, something that I'd like to or that I'm going to get in, not like to, I'm going to get into here in the future. It's one of my goals within the next year is to be coaching a couple different ideas of what I want to do. But we met in a leadership training course and or just like a self-improvement course. And it was life-changing, right? And I'm really excited to have this conversation because I think that we can get deep into it and answer some good questions between the two of us.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely life-changing. One of the life-changing things is I notice even my questions that I'm bringing to the conversation are completely different than they were maybe a month ago or so. Mm-hmm. So on that note, you mentioned your one of your goals is to be a life coach. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to why do you want to be a life coach? Where did that vision come from? Mm-hmm. And where are you taking that?
So the dream started basically, I have always wanted to help people. I enjoy helping people. I like to work with people. I like to work with people to better themselves. And coaching is all about basically giving a person space, creating space for that person to be able to explore their lives. They call it life coaching, but it can be done in so many different ways. It's not necessarily life coaching. Basically, as a coach, you walk alongside your client or that person that you're coaching on their journey. They are at point A, but they want to get to point B, and they don't know how to get there. So what you do as a coach is you ask powerful questions along these conversations as you're coaching. You ask questions that not necessarily leads them to where they want to go, but in that conversation on that journey, they're going to start answering the questions, everything that's already inside of them. They already have the answers. They just know how to get there. They don't know how to get it out. They've never vocalized it, perhaps. So one of the things I try to, that I want to do is help people get from point A to point B. I want to see them grow. I want to see them get to the point they want to be in their lives. And a lot of times just talking through something with somebody can really change your life.
Yeah.
And so my passion has always been, I love reselling. I do have a passion for it, but there's not as much of that intrinsic value as coaching would give me. Like I want to have that fulfillment inside knowing that I've helped someone get from that point in their life to where they want to be, and just see them continue to grow. That's a big part of why I want to do the coaching. And in terms of, you had asked, like, where am I going with that?
Yeah.
I've got ideas. One idea that I have that I'd love to do is, what you're doing right now is a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was doing before I was doing this full time was a side hustle. So many people in this country have side hustles of something, yes. some small little business that they're doing on the side to make extra money. So one of the things that I'd like to do is coach people as a side hustle coach, basically, where I'm helping them kind of work through some things. Maybe it's somebody who has a side hustle who wants to grow their side hustle. Maybe it's someone who doesn't have a side hustle but wants to start one. Maybe it's someone who has a side hustle but wants to take it full time. And within all that, you're also saying, well, I have a life too, so I have to figure out how to balance this side hustle with my life, or how do I balance the side hustle with my full-time job and my life? So coaching explores all of those things. It's work-life balance. It's, life, basically satisfaction in life, and taking that journey, answering those questions, creating goals, and then creating actions for those goals so that you can get to where you want to be.
So what would be one of the first things you would tell somebody to create a side hustle? So I'm starting from scratch, right? I don't know where to start. And I know there's a lot of questions that come before that and trying to get to know that person. And you kind of know me. So I'm starting from scratch. What would be one of the first things, a piece of action that you would give me that might be helpful?
So interesting thing that a lot of people coaching is one of these things that people don't completely grasp all the time. So there's coaching, there's counseling, there's mentoring, there's consulting. The one thing that coaches don't do unless asked is give advice. Coaches are constantly asking questions. The person that's telling is the person who is being coached. So what I would do, instead of telling you what to do first, I would say, what are some of your biggest passions in life?
There we go.
And then
my biggest passion is helping people.
Is helping people. So if your passion is helping people, expand on that. I'd say, what else? Okay. What else is there? And so we kind of start exploring that. And eventually, it might take 45 minutes, an hour. It might take an entire session, but we're going to come out of that with some sort of clarity on what it is that you have a passion for. It might not have answered the question of what do I do first, but at the very least, you have then now you have clarity on you've got clarity on your passion. And if you've got clarity on your passion, then you can start exploring in the next session. You can start exploring, where do I go from here?
Right. There are people that really feel like, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. I've had the privilege today to talk to a couple of people that were setting up their visions and really was kind of lost. I'm not sure where to start and how to start. And really it is that conversation of just asking questions. And they even said today, well, I really knew this, but you helped me get there. Right. And that is so satisfying. I hear that's what you want to do.
That's exactly what coaching is. Yes.
Okay.
They know what they want. They do know what they want, but you help them get there. So in some way, shapes, or forms, you were coaching them in that moment because you helped them get out of them what they want. They knew it, but they didn't know how to get to it. And that's what coaching's all about, is getting to the point, getting the stuff out that we know, but we've never vocalized perhaps, or we've never made clear to ourselves.
And on that note, and then we're going to change the topic here, but on that note regarding coaching, something else said was, it's interesting how I'm able to assist somebody else, but I can't look in the mirror and do that same conversation. So connections, again, this is my YouTube channel, and this is what I say all the time, connections with people is very important because that connection will help draw out who the real you, the potential that you have is. And I really like that you're going to be a coach, and I'm going to follow your journey on that. Shoot, who knows? I might be one of your clients.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. But that's interesting you said that, because you mentioned that you can help people pull that from them, but you struggle to do it for yourself.
Right.
The very best coaches, the very best therapists, have coaches. Mm-hmm. You know, if you aren't putting the same work in that your clients are, how are you showing up authentically to those people? If someone says, do you have a coach? And I'm a coach, and I say, nope. They're like, so you don't value that. Mm-hmm. You know? We all, as human beings, we all have our own hurdles, rackets, whatever you want to call them. I like a word other than that. I like the hurdles. I think we all have our own roadblocks that we set up. You know, we just put these barricades up. And so even though we might be able to help other people, or we might be able to, we might be able to draw certain things out, we have barricades we've set up because of things that we've experienced throughout our entire lives. Right. So yeah, I think that's super normal. And it's just like, if you were a coach, if I'm a coach, I'm going to have coaching. Like, I'm getting ready to pay for, my cousin is a professional coach, and he's going to help me with my mentor hours for the International Coaching Federation's credentialing process. I've got a couple of mentor hours left that I need to do, and he's going to help me with those. So I'm going to go get coached, because I want to be able to tell my clients, yes, I've experienced this as a client and I know it works.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Sometimes that
was actually a point I wanted to get to, because I have the whole analogy that people have used, even the best basketball players have coaches, they don't just go out and play, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, all them, they have coaches. So there's a reason why you have a coach.
Yeah.
No matter how good you are, you need somebody around you to critique you and continue to make you better. Right. And that's why I do believe in what you're doing on being that coach. You're going to be able to help other people. Mm-hmm. Now, on that note, we are going to transfer a little bit. This is something I also believe in, that I talk a lot about on my channel, and it's networking. Small businesses, it's, in my opinion, for reselling or any small business, it's important to be able to network. And I believe you've had some networking opportunities that I want to talk, or that I want to ask you about. But I first want to ask you, what do you think of networking, and why is it good? Why is it beneficial?
Oh, yeah. I think growing up, even in education, looking back now, I realize how important networking was. But now, running my own business, and then prior to this, I was in a networking group for the business I worked for previously, and I really do see the benefits of that. Networking, I think, is incredibly important. As a reseller, we sit so often in our basements, or we sit in our shop, wherever that might be. We get out to garage sales or thrift stores, but how often are you making connections? And I don't want to say just making connections. I'm talking about making authentic connections, because there are so many surface level connections that you make throughout your life that don't bear fruit. And if you're not making an authentic connection with these people, showing them you care about what they have to say, that you care about the things that they care about, and that you're willing to work with them on whatever, price maybe they want or something. If you can't build the authentic connection, that person's not going to send more people to you, or they're not going to come back to you the next time they've got things, Right. I think that's incredibly important. So yeah, I'm in a business networking group. I've been in this is just starting I'll say my third year. It's not really a full year, but I'm getting there. 2019, I started visiting right around now. I joined in early 2020. So I guess we're getting close to 3 years. And it's changed my life. I went from moving down to this area and not knowing anybody to, we had 25-ish people in our group. And I made friends with these people, and some of them are some of the closest people I have in my life right now. I know you got other questions. I'll let you ask some of those questions. I talk more about, because I could talk about this forever.
Actually, feel free to. One of the questions I had, and you're answering it really right now, is what value are you finding with that networking group right now? Besides, connections with people is more important, is the most important thing. But what other value are you finding?
So the group I'm in is Business Networking International, and they're all over the world. Our chapter we just added our 25th member. I have served in my almost 3 years. I served as the Secretary Treasurer for a year, and I just started as the Vice President this year. The president wasn't there today. Her son was sick, so I got to serve as president today, and I ran the meeting. I'm also working on potentially becoming a coach with BNI for chapter success. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm kind of in limbo, waiting on some answers for that. But anyways, what the value that's provided is, I moved to a place I wasn't familiar with, and now I have 25, maybe not all of them are the closest people in my life, but I have a lot of them that have become incredibly close. I went to today, for instance, I just decided one of our members was speaking at a Chamber of Commerce event in a different part of the city that I don't usually go to. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go. So I went up there and sat at the table with about 5 other people from my networking group who went to support this guy. And there were only 3 people at our table who we didn't know. And one of them, I was sitting there by myself, and everybody had gone to get their lunch. I came back to the table first, and she was sitting there with her lunch. And she said, who are you here with? And I said, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, what company do you work for? And I told her about my company. She's like, oh, wow, I run a senior living center, and I'm always working with people who are downsizing and getting rid of things to move into assisted living or senior living or whatever it might be. And so I made that connection sitting there at lunch, and she's like, do you have a business card? I do. So I gave her my business card. And then, after lunch, they had us all stand up. There was about 20 of us, and we all talked a little bit about our business. I mentioned my business, and one guy got real excited. He runs a very small family-owned moving company. He said, I have people every day who have stuff that don't know what to do with it. He's like, I'm super excited for this. So I just on a whim decided to go to this networking event, this Chamber of Commerce event, and I made 2 connections right there that could prove to be really beneficial to me as a reseller.
Yeah. And even if for some reason that fell through, you made those connections, I bet you they know 1 or 2 other people that might be referred to you. And then that just explodes that way. And that's how networking works. It may be one little handshake that may mean nothing, but if you make a true connection with that person and you show that you care about that person, it's going to come back 6 months from now, a year from now. And that's the amazing thing about it. And I've seen that happen. And that's a great story that you had there.
Yeah. And I'm seeing this happen more and more. We had somebody come visit our chapter to see how our chapter ran, because they were the president and vice president of this other chapter. So I went and visited them about a week later, and I'm working with the one lady. She does like a vitamin. It's called Juice Plus. It's like a vitamin company thing. So I'm on her program now. The vice president, I met with her, and I have those Legos I sold the other night. I sold some little minifigures from the 90s, just not that many of them, for $100. I'm selling stuff for her. She had stuff at the house because her in-laws were downsizing. And then I met the tech guy. I met with him the other day again. You know, he's bought things from me before, some Legos for his son, because I've got tons of Legos. And we met the other morning for coffee. My wife came along because she wanted to get coffee there, and we all had a conversation. And he's hooked me up with several people. One of them helps people declutter. Okay, that's a great connection. He's like, there's a lady, a couple people here in town, two of them who do what you do, but they don't have any online presence, and they're looking for somebody to help them with that. Okay, so I just potentially had 3 connections just from having coffee, because I stepped out of my comfort zone, got vulnerable, went to somebody else's meeting, and then was asked back just here this past week to be a substitute for one of the people who couldn't be there that day. And so I'm also, you know, I'm in conversation. I'm selling Barbies for the president of the group right now. I've got the realtor he flips houses, and oftentimes the houses still have stuff in them. He's like, the next time I have one, I'm calling you. So, oh my God, that's like 5 or 6 things just because I stepped out of my comfort zone. And one thing, Abel, we learned a lot about in our training was vulnerability. When you're vulnerable and you step outside of your comfort zone, there's this energy that goes out into the world, into the universe, and that comes back to you. And I'm definitely, I'm witnessing that. I'm living it right now. And man, it feels amazing, really.
Yeah. And we talked about trying to continue that momentum. It can be hard, but the connections that we have, the conversation that we will continue after this call and before this call, I think will help benefit us. And again, that goes with networking.
Yeah.
Now with networking, I think we beat that horse to death. You get the point, everybody. Network,
it's
make
really
connections.
Important. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask. Hopefully, these are a little bit harder questions for you. I'm going to really get into there now. When did you go full time?
I went full time reselling. I just kind of mark it as August of 2021.
2021.
Just over a year. My daughter was born early July of 2021, and I was home and I was just angry at, like, I don't know. There's some things that I didn't, when I went back to work after, I took like a week off. When I went back, I was already not feeling things. And then there was a situation, and the boss is still my very good friend. He was in my wedding later that year. But I didn't, like, we had a vacation, a small little vacation thing planned. And basically what I got that night when I was like, hey, I have to go, like, I've got this, we're going down, you know, we're leaving for this vacation, is the job done? Well, no, but you didn't send anybody else here. So I was real frustrated, and actually had a conversation that next day. I went over and had a barbecue with John and his brother-in-law, Brennan, who I do a podcast with. We haven't done it since April, but we do a podcast about reselling. And I just was, you know, I told him my frustrations, and he called me later, and he's like, I think you're ready to go full time. He's like, you have a reason, like, you have a why. And that's the most important part, is like having that why. So yeah, I started about, you know, a little over a year ago, full time.
So as you went through that, again, like we talked about before, I like talking about the successes. So I feel you're successful. You're a year in or so approximately, and you're doing well. But every day can be a difficult day or can be a good day. You know, how do you get through those difficult days? Or let me maybe rephrase that. Yeah. How do you stay motivated to make sure you run your business like the way you want to run your business and not lose focus?
It's hard. For me, it's really hard. I struggle. I'm a people person. I'm in my basement with barely any natural light during the day in this clutter, which does make a difference in your productivity. You know, we're trying to live in this house and also me run this business out of the basement. And it's cluttered and not a lot of sunlight, not a lot of, connecting with people while you're doing this part of it. It's hard. I do struggle with it. I would say that I try to reach out to people when I'm struggling, but that's usually false. It's usually the opposite, as I think most of you who will listen to this would say, like, when I struggle, I shut down. I don't reach out, which is what I need to do. Although going through our training, I'm much more likely now to do that, and I have been doing that more. Like, I noticed you were pretty quiet today, so I haven't asked yet why, but you were pretty quiet today.
Well, you may have gotten the hint. I spent approximately maybe 4 or 5 hours talking to other people. We're working on, I don't want to give it away, so I won't, but working on certain things. And that's where I'm kind of realizing that coaching opportunity, or it made me feel really good today because I was on the other side of it. Now, the funny thing is I haven't completed mine yet. And that's why I say it's always easy for me. It's easier to talk somebody through and ask those questions versus looking in the mirror and asking those same questions and getting it down on paper. So that goes back to everybody needs a coach.
You got to look at the man in the mirror, ask him to change his ways. No message.
Great song.
No message has ever been any clearer.
We're going to go through the whole song, aren't we?
For once in your life. Staying motivated is very difficult for me. I will say a year ago, I was much more successful at the start of my business. Quarter 4, I was killing it. By January, I was at a 90-day sales total of like $21,000 by January. I'm sitting at, I'm hoping, where am I at? I'm not even to 12,000 right now. I've really struggled. This year has not been easy. And part of that is I do think the sales seem to be going the wrong direction with eBay.
So I'm going to stop you right there. I want to focus in on that. And depending on how you answer, we might have a challenge back and forth, which I would love. Yes, for me too. The value of my 90-day is just dropping like a rock, and I'm trying to figure out why. So is it one, eBay, because it's messing with our algorithm? Is it 2, because we're not working hard enough?
Yes.
Is it 3, because of the economy? Which one do you think it is? And I'll give you my opinion here in a minute.
It's all 3.
Okay.
For me, it's all 3. I do think eBay's been around a long time. I know I haven't been doing this that long. I've been reselling for 5 years. I was part-time. I started in 2017. I do think that the way that people consume media, the people that how they consume things. I mean, eBay is still a place that a lot of people go. I'm not saying that's not true, but people are going to open up Amazon first and see if something's on there first. And so I do think there's a lot of different things. A lot of changes have been made over the past year in eBay. The fee structure has increased. It just seems like, I'm looking with my shipping, it's like 35%. And that's with 35% of my net sales, or my gross sales, go to some sort of a fee or shipping. And that doesn't include how much I paid for the item. So when you start thinking about it that way, it's like, man, I'm barely getting by. Number 2, I do not work hard enough. I know that. And I struggle with that. I struggle working by myself. I struggle with time management. When I start to see my sales dip, I shut down. Instead of working harder, I go into this like funk, and I just kind of drop. And then I just am kind of stuck there for a little while. And then I'm like, you have bills to pay. And then I start to build it back up again. So right now I'm at the point where I'm saying I'm not allowing myself to tank again. Like I'm going to keep myself, even if it's like, okay, if I have a day where it's not working, fine, make it up the next day. I think that I set some really high expectations for myself because of the people that I am friends with. who have very high, that have been doing this a long time and have, tremendous YouTube following and whatnot following and things like that. So you try to mimic the things that you see working, but sometimes we forget that we're all a different person. We all have different business ideas and models and the things we like to sell and how we do business. It doesn't have to be the same for every reseller. And I think that's really important for anybody starting out. It doesn't have to be the same as your favorite dude on, or male or female, your favorite person that you watch on YouTube, because it's going to be completely different for you. So yeah, 2, I know I'm not working hard enough and a lot of the time. And 3, the economy. Yeah, sure. It definitely is going to affect things. People just, I don't think, are spending quite as much. I will say this, it's not as bad as it was in June and July. That was rough. July was terrible. I think July was the worst month I've had, easily the worst month I've had since I was full-time. Like by a lot. And
on that note, I really think you'll agree with me on this, but feel free to disagree. Because I think of those 3 items as well, but then I remind myself, what can I control, right?
Yep.
That's number 2.
Yep.
So if I was truly using the word all the time that my son used, if I was truly grinding and really grinding it out, I bet you that graph that I look at, the amount of work that I put in, I bet you the amount of income is also going to copy that, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's the one. Maybe I set you up for this, and I apologize if I did.
You're good.
Number 2 is really, that's what we have control over.
Only we have control over.
That's the one we should focus on, type of thing.
Yeah. And it's. I will say it's difficult. I talked a lot about networking. I put a lot of time into networking, and when I'm doing that, that means I've got time out of the thrift stores. I've got time out of listing. I've got time, there are times where I'm like, I'm going to list this whole afternoon, and I get home and I'm like, I got to get all this shipping done. I get this shipping done, and I'm like, okay, I have an hour to list before I have to go pick up my son, or I have to go do this or that. And for me, definitely number 2, we have the ability to control that. And I think the more that we get to know each other, we can help one another in, I'm like a year ahead of you basically, or so, however you want to say it. And we have John, who we're good friends with, who's
20 years ahead of us.
Right. He's been doing this a very long time.
Right.
So I think it's just kind of like, talking through, for me, it was really important to set a schedule. It took me a long time. It literally took me until we went through this program before I realized, hey, dummy, you can't just have like open blocks of time and say, I'm just going to list all day. Like you have to actually plan what you're doing, because you don't work that way. You don't work with open time well at all. You'll just waste all your time.
Yeah. Let's focus on that. Yeah. What is your optimal, take me through your optimal day of that schedule.
So I'll go back to, where's my listings? I'm trying to think which day I had. Monday was decent. Yesterday was pretty good. I got 22 listings in yesterday. Let me think about what I did yesterday. Yesterday I got up, then waking up early for no reason. And I waste my time. So what I'm doing now is I'm wasting my time early in the morning rather than doing it while I'm supposed to be working. So I don't remember what I did right away in the morning, but I got, it was about 8:30. I came downstairs, which is a half an hour earlier than I normally do. And I just started listing things. So, I'll do listing. And then I'm like, you know what? I have all these Legos. I really need to get started for, I got to get them on Facebook Marketplace. I got to get them out of here. So I started messing with those a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I've got like this stuff. So I'm kind of working around. It's kind of like, it's organizing. So I would list. If I started to get worn out, I'll stop listing, and I'll try to kind of do something else. Give myself a little time. I really struggle with eating. If I eat lunch, like a real lunch, I'll shut down for like an hour and a half after that. So I try not to do that. I'm doing more like a meal replacement shake and some some fruit and vegetable like capsules is what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
And I'm cool with that. That actually doesn't shut my body down the same way as like if I'm eating like a big turkey sandwich or something.
Yeah.
So again, like this is still like, it sounds like it's just open time, and it kind of is. And that's where I struggle, is even if I sit down and I've got it in my computer, like I'll sit down and plan out my week, it'll change Monday morning at 8:00. You know,
Okay.
it'll change right away, just depending. And I think you do have to be flexible, but I also think you need to be true to yourself and true to what you want to do. Saying no to people is difficult.
Yes.
And I think it's really important to learn how to say no when it does not serve you. My favorite author, Jen Sincero, You Are a Badass, You're a Badass at Making Money, Badass Habits. That's one of the things she talks about, is like, you have to learn how to say no when it doesn't benefit you, when it doesn't serve you, and it's only serving the other person. You have to learn how to say no, because we waste so much of our valuable time saying yes to people when we really want to say no, just because we want to do what? People please the other person. And people pleasing is one of those biggest like rackets, hurdles, or whatever you want to call them. So yeah.
So what I'm hearing from you is you definitely know the value of that schedule, but you're still struggling on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So I'm going to challenge you right now. Without looking at anything else, you wake up 8:00 Monday morning. What is your perfect day, business-wise, family-wise, friends-wise? What is that perfect day?
So
without thinking.
So yeah, I get up at 6. I would get up. I would make my coffee, make my shake, come down here, run on the treadmill, go upstairs, take my shower. By the time I'm done, the kids are getting up 7:15, 7:30-ish, and we get them off to school around 8 o'clock. Maybe I'll sit down. I like to read. I don't give myself time to do that. I would probably take that from 8 to 9 to read and do some of the little admin stuff that I need to be doing. 9 o'clock down here, get listings in for 2 straight hours, take a break, maybe go to my storage unit, get what I need to ship for the day, have my second shake, have my capsules, come back, get my shipping done. Time after shipping, either do more listing or take the stuff to the post office and then hit some thrift on the way home. And then at that point, it's about time for the kids, and I got to take them to karate.
There we go. I didn't know they did karate.
Yeah, Luca's he'll be 4 in a couple of weeks. I'm like, oh, December, he'll be 4 in December. Well, it's almost December now, so
yeah,
he'll be 4 December 4th. So, yeah, he does karate, and so he goes Mondays and Wednesdays. So Mondays, that's one of the things that I have a responsibility to sometimes, not always. This week I did. So it just depends on what my wife is doing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of the things, Tony, I want to acknowledge you for being open and honest on this call, because we get on social media and people look at Instagram or anything like that and say, well, that person's successful. And we were in a text, and I know how well you did over the last day or two, or what the conversation was. Well, that doesn't mean you don't struggle, right? So I really appreciate you being honest and knowing some of the things that you need to work on, because that's the whole point. Everybody, no matter who you are, no matter the status or the status that you think that person has, they have something to work on to get better.
Yeah.
And your honesty, I think, will help other people, like, oh, I'm not alone. I can do this. I just need to take the proper steps. I see the future for you, that I can see you creating that schedule and really hammering it home, which will take that business to that next level. And I'm not saying you're not successful now, but to that next level.
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge you again for thanking you for being honest. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish this out.
Yeah.
And I know I'm cutting you off, so I apologize, but I want to finish this out with my channel's called Abel's Treasures. So what is your greatest treasure?
You could do this a couple different ways. You could do a physical treasure. You could do the emotional treasure. I would just have to say that my greatest treasure, and I think it's most people say this, would be my family and the friends that I have. I think those are incredible treasures. I think that there are other treasures within each of us. You want to call them talents. You want to call them gifts that we have. So I would say that my treasure of the gift that I have is my ability to connect with people. So that is a treasure for me as well. So that's probably where I'd go with those things. With that question.
I like it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Tony, connecting with people is definitely a treasure. I 100% agree with you. Now, it is my privilege to pick 3 items that I pulled from this conversation. Now, I'll jump right into it. Number 1, coaching. We talked about coaching at the beginning of the conversation, and I 100% believe in coaching, or maybe another way of putting it is mentoring. We can learn a lot from each other, from somebody who is more successful or somebody who is just starting out. So making sure that we stay open to the conversation when we're connecting with people is definitely needed. So again, coaching, being able and open to that feedback. Now, number 2, networking. He said something that I really resonated with me, and that is being vulnerable. He stretched and went to a function that he was uncomfortable, but if I remember correctly, he had 4 or 5 connections because he was able to get out of his comfort zone and meet these different people. I can't wait to see what business he attracts because he continues to get out of his comfort zone. And number 3 is he found his why. He said that he went full-time approximately a year ago, and it was his why of someone telling him what to do. At least that's the takeaway that I pulled from it. And he was able to go all in and say, I'm going to create my own business. And that why is why he's functioning today. So again, Tony, I appreciate the conversation. I learned a lot. Now, the greatest treasure is connections with people. Take care of each other. Until next time.